Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about another massive combined missile and drone attack that took place between the 21st and the 22nd of February of 2026. The Russians were using hundreds of drones, dozens of missiles. This morning pro-Ukrainian sources published this picture, and according to this picture we see that the Russians used all means they have. The Russians were attacking the territory Ukraine with yellow lines, which means that the Russians were using hundreds of drones. The Russians were attacking Ukraine with cruise missiles of Ha-101 type. We're talking about these red lines and these let's say missiles. The Russians were attacking Ukraine with Iskander ballistic missiles. We're talking about orange lines. And the Russians attacked the territory Ukraine with the hypersonic missiles of Zircon type. We're talking about these pink lines. So as you can see, there are two areas of main focus of attack. The Russians were attacking the city of Kiev and the territory around, and the Russians attacked the city of Krapivnitsky and the territory around the city. So lots of explosions. The Russians managed to deal significant damage, and one thing is clear, that this is not the end of the energy crisis for Ukraine. Now let's discuss everything in details, and let's try to understand what was happening during the previous night. So the Russians, according to information we have, attacked the energy substation 750 to the southeast of the city of Vinnytsia. So this infrastructural object was attacked, and the sources are saying that the Russians used at least 4 Ha-101 missiles. As of the morning of the 22nd of February of 2026, we haven't received anything that can confirm whether the Russians managed to deal significant damage or not, but in coming days we will receive satellite pictures, photos, and then we will understand the damage the Russians managed to deal. This substation is connected with substations in the central part of Ukraine. We're talking about the city by the name of Krapivnitsky. According to information we have, lots of explosions were recorded exactly from this area. As for the territory in the city of Krapivnitsky and around, the Russians used, according to the monitoring channels, more than or around 15 Iskander missiles. The Russians were attacking the Krapivnitska-Kirovogradska power plant. It's not like a power plant, it's probably like a heat station. So that Ukrainians used to supply the city with heat, with water, and the Russians attacked the Krapivnitska substation, Ukrainka substation 330, which is located to the west of the city and which is connected with the Vinnytsia substation. So as you can see, the Russians were trying to destroy completely energy infrastructure and chains of energy supply in these parts of Ukraine, trying to cut the southern parts of Ukraine, the eastern parts of Ukraine, and the northern parts of Ukraine from the western parts of Ukraine. I would like to remind you that there are still huge issues between Ukraine and Slovakia and Hungary, and the consequences of this conflict we will face tomorrow, we will see tomorrow, and most likely we will see decomposition of the entire energy infrastructure of Ukraine within the next several days. Anyway, let's put some back. Once again, the Russians used around 15 Iskander missiles just to attack this region, and when talking about the picture of the global attack, so this is the territory we're talking about. Now let's move to the north and let's talk discuss the situation around the city of Kiev. According to this picture, lots of missiles were used to attack this territory, and according to this probably article, the Russians were using drones, the Russians were using Iskander missiles, the Russians were using cruise missiles of Ha-101 type, and the Russians used anti-tank, anti-fleet, anti-ship hypersonic Zircon missiles. So lots of explosions were recorded in this area, and the Russians attacked, for example, the Kiev power station number 6. 4 Iskander missiles arrived in this area. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the Kiev power station number 5. When talking about this attack, the Russians used 6 Ha-101 missiles and 4 Iskander M missiles. And according to information we have, and according to this map of the roads, the Russians most likely attacked the Kyiv substation 750, which is located to the west, but as of the morning of the 22nd of February, we don't know for sure the exact number of missiles and drones that the Russians used to attack this territory. Once again, and according to all these things, we see that the Russians are trying to finally cut the western parts of Ukraine from the eastern parts, so that to cut the energy infrastructure and to make the eastern part part of Ukraine completely, not like independent, but completely cut from the mainland. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the Tripilya power station, which is located to the south of the city of Kiev. As for this territory, the Russians used 4 Zircon anti-ship hypersonic missiles, 4 Iskander-MS missiles, 2 Iskander-KS missiles, 6 Hawana-1 missiles, and 1 Ha-59 missiles. So lots of missiles were used to attack this territory. Most likely the Russians managed to deal significant damage. As for the pro-Ukrainian sites, this morning they published the article of what exactly they managed to bring down or something like this. The Ukrainians are saying that a total of 345 aerial attack assets were detected, including 4 anti-ship missiles, but independent sources are saying that there were 8 anti-ship missiles, Zircon, 22 ballistic missiles, and 18 cruise missiles. So in total, around the 50 missiles were used by Russians according to official data. According to unofficial data, the Russians used around 70 missiles to attack objects of energy infrastructure of Ukraine. As for the morning of the 22nd of February, once again, we haven't received almost anything that can describe or can tell us the damage the Russians managed to deal as a result of these attacks. We don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to destroy something or not. We just know the exact number of, or more or less, let's say approximate number of, let's say aerial assets that the Russians used, and the more or less information about the work of Ukraine's air defense. As for the morning of the 22nd of February, we received several articles related to the current situation of energy infrastructure. For example, according to information we have, we can see the consequences of Russia's attack on the territory of Burstynskaya power station in the area of the city of Ivano-Frankov that took place on the 7th of February. As a result of attack, several blocks and several, let's say, constructions were destroyed, so this part of the Burstynskaya power station was completely destroyed. Furthermore, we have a video from the territory of the Nikolaev region. Here we can see the consequences of Russian attack that took place during the previous days. In this video we can see the fire that took place on the territory of the energy substation to the east of the city of Nikolaev. So the Russians during the previous days attacked this substation, and this substation was significantly damaged. And the Russians attacked during the previous night also the city of Odessa with drones, and this morning we received this picture where we can see how different special services were trying to stabilize the situation in the city. So once again, this is just the first step of a 2-steps plan that was created most likely by Russians. So this is the first day. Today the Ukrainian services will try to stabilize the situation, will try to fix issues, will try to repair lines, substations, many other different things. And according to information we have, and most likely tomorrow, Slovakia and Hungary will cut energy supply of Ukraine as well. So this is going to be significant pressure, and today this information was provided by pro-Ukrainian sources. If you remember, yesterday Hungary and Slovakia issued the ultimatum to Ukraine. According to this ultimatum, Ukraine must resume energy, let's say oil supply via Druzhba pipeline to these European countries. But today the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine stated that Ukraine rejects and condemns the ultimatums and blackmail from the leadership of the governments of Hungary and the Slovak Republic regarding energy supplies between our countries. So Ukraine rejected this ultimatum, and we can understand because we know that elections are going to take place very soon in Hungary, and Ukraine is trying to. And we know that Hungary was always against position of Ukraine, against position of joining Ukraine in the European Union, and many other different things. So it is very important. It's a vital question for Ukrainians to make the situation, or to have the possibility, or to create the possibility that can lead to the changing of governments in Hungary. So this is very important because the changing of the government in Hungary can lead probably to restoring and resolving most of the questions and issues that Ukraine currently has with the European Union. So this is a vital question for Ukraine to support changes on the territory of Hungary. So that is why Ukraine will suffer most likely huge problems with electricity supply in coming days until the end of the election process in Hungary. So let's wait, of course, and see what is going to be next. But this spring, the late winter military campaign and early spring military campaigns are going to be very, very interesting and very, very tough. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporizhia direction, where both the Russians and the Ukrainians continue their offensives. The Russians continue their offensive operation in the area of the settlements of Gulyai-Polska, Velika Tersna and Gorka. Today, several affiliated channels with a group of forces is stated that in coming hours or days they will publish lots of very important and interesting information, most likely on this matter, and it seems that in coming days the Russians will finish the battle for one of these villages, either for the village of Verkhnya Tersa or Vozdvizhivka or Rizdvyanka. If it happens, this is going to be a very huge and very painful signal for the armed forces of Ukraine, because these settlements, control over these settlements, opens the Russians the way towards the settlement of Orekhov and the Orekhov agglomeration. So in coming days, some changes might take place here. At the same time, we continue receiving updates about Ukraine's counter-offensive operation or Ukraine's infiltration in the northern direction. Today the map has been adjusted, as you can see, and we adjusted the map based on the reports that were published by pro-Ukrainian sources. According to these changes, we see that Ukrainians are trying to keep infiltration further in the southern direction towards the settlements of Privilya and Uspenovka, and the Ukrainians are trying to continue infiltration around the settlement of Berezova and to cut this settlement in pincers. As of now, we still haven't adjusted the gray zone in this area as the territory under complete Ukraine control, because according to information we have, there are still lots of Russian positions, and as you can see now, we see that there are also lots of Ukrainian positions in this area. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, but the sources are saying that the Russians are finishing their regrouping in this area, and most likely in coming days the Russians may begin a counter-offensive operation with the purpose to force the Ukrainians to fall back towards the river of Volcha and even maybe further to the north. Furthermore, pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that the Russians during the spring military campaign are not going to continue offensive operation in the direction of Zaporizhia. They will, but this is not going to be the primary target. The sources are saying that the Russians most likely will try to attack in the direction of the city of Pavlograd. So before moving further in the direction of the city of Zaporizhia, the Russians may try to maintain the lines and to improve their positions, let's say from the current positions in the northern direction, with the purpose to maintain the lines between and along, let's say, this red line, including the city of Dobropolye. So it will create something like a very huge pocket around the city of Zaporizhia, and from these positions Russians will be able to establish control over the city of Dnipro, over the main supply lines, and only then Russians will continue advancing further in the western direction towards the city of Zaporizhia. So first the Russians are planning to move in the northern direction and only then in the western direction. This information was stated by different pro-Ukraine experts who has connections with probably general staff of the armed forces of Ukraine or something like this. Now let's talk about the Dnipropetrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. This is the end of the 20th of February, this is the end of the 21st of February, and this is the beginning of the 22nd of February. The Russians, as you can see, are keeping infiltration further in the northern direction towards the settlement of Sergeyevka, and currently the distance between the edge positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation and the settlement itself is already less than 2 kilometers, around 2 kilometers, which means that the Russians are very close to start the battle for this settlement. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing the western and the northwestern parts of the settlement of Grishina, where there are very heavy clashes, and according to updates, the Russians are also about to finish the battle for this territory. These two villages, control over these two villages opens the Russians' operational space further and deep inside of the Dnipropetrovsk region and towards the southern part of the Kharkiv region. As for the Konstantinovka direction, during the previous 24 hours we haven't received anything, so which means that Ukrainians still control the situation, that Ukrainians still control the line of combat contact. Let's discuss the situation in the Slaviansk direction. During the previous night, small changes were recorded. This is the end of the 21st of February. This is the beginning of the 22nd of February. The Russians managed to close the pockets to the south of Fedorovka Druga, according to pro-Ukrainian sources, and the Russians managed to improve their positions around the settlement of Novomarkova. This is the situation, this is the territory on the Ukrainian side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, which means that the Russians are keeping advancing during their Slaviansk offensive operation that is taking place from the southwest of the city of Slaviansk itself. As for the northern directions, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything special. Probably the most important updates are connected to a situation that the Russians are intensifying their offensive operation. During the previous night, the Russians attacked the settlement by the name of Trastinets. In this video, we can see a factory that was attacked by Russian missiles and drones, and as a result of this attack, as you can see, the factory was completely destroyed. Furthermore, the Russians continue bombing and attacking settlements along the border between Russian Federation and Ukraine, which probably means and tell us that the Russians most likely will continue their offensive operation along the border with the purpose to increase a buffer zone between the territory of the Russian Federation and the territory of Ukraine. So lots of explosions, as you can see, are taking place along the border, which means that something big might happen in different directions, in different places between Russia and Ukraine in coming days, most likely during the early spring military campaign. Another important update is coming from the most western parts of Ukraine. According to information we have, during the previous night, there were several explosions. Several explosions took place on the territory of the city of Lvov. There were 3 explosions, and according to information we have, up to 4 police officers of the city of Lvov were wounded. There are casualties. So something happened there. As of now, the investigation committee of the Ukraine is trying to understand whether that was just a fight between local bands or there is a sign of the Russian special forces. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary. The Military Summary channel reminds that we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye-bye.